taking pains to look at what's going on the debate screen in the WhatsApp. Totally off.
Off the charts.
Off the chart, totally.
Okay. Stuff happens.
Well, okay, let's go. So the top of page Kuftes, I think it's good enough to start here. Or rather, I'll go back a bit. Again, I'll start in the same place where we started yesterday, 4 lines from the bottom. And we'll go through it a little bit more quickly. We are talking about mochin. That mochin need their own space totally. Because mochin have to reach into the purity of the soul itself, and anything other than that is mevalvel, is confusing, is interfering. No matter what that koich may be, even the finest koiches. V'gam, again, the 4th line from the bottom. Also, another point, in order to come to some haskalah chadosha, totally novel concept, there must be what's called haloas klei sichli, the raising up of the kelim of his sechel. And we explained briefly yesterday, and I hope we pay some attention to it. Haloas klei sichli means that the kelim of sechel rise up to the sechel level. As we explained, the principle of keli, the idea of a keli is that the keli is actually in the worldly arena, and you bring something from. If you want to benefit of something, you bring it into a keli, into the world, then you can partake of it. But in order to come to a haskalah chadosha, where the kelim, there is no kelim for it. Haskalah chadosha has to be identified exclusively from the haskalah itself, from the sechel, without the assist of the kelim. But clearly we need kelim because we have to bring it down into our thought and so forth. So the kelim themselves are raised up to the madrege that the kelim becomes sensitive to the sechel. They're not merely receiving the sechel and bringing it down into the kelim level. They actually rise up and they sense the sechel in its own abode, in its own place. This is called haloas klei sichli. V'hu inyan, and this is the inyan that is mentioned of Yishteimim Kisho Choda. Yishteimim Kisho Choda means for one moment he was blank. He blanked out for one moment. Beheder his pashtus. Blanked out does not mean that he does not have the koyach, but it's not mispashet. It does not express itself. Aderabba, to the contrary, in that state of hishteimamus, he is b'bchinas aliyah davke. He is in a b'chinas aliyah, in a manner of aliyah, of rising upwards, not bringing forth and expressing in the place of in the worldly place, but aliyah, rising up from Metzius and sensing the way things are higher than Metzius. Clearly, he still has that koyach, but the koyach is ishtoimim. The koyach functions, but it's blank. He does not add any color or any form to that which it observes. It observes it, but observes it in its perfect purity, the way it is.
Right. This rise away from Metzius sounds a lot like Mufshat, that he lifts up above the Kalim back to the Or itself, to the Sechel unto itself.
Okay, this is why we have to be careful how we understand. We have to understand it correctly. We're talking about a raising of the Kalim. We're not talking about nullification or elimination of Kalim. Because if you eliminate the Kalim, you're not going to get anything. What you're talking about means raising the Kalim. That is why the Rebbe takes pains to make a point. Hishtemi Kishala Choda means beheder his pashtus. That what you're removing is his pashtus. Is spreading forth and expressing itself. But not elimination. In this state of Heder his pashtus and hishteimamus, he observes everything that there is to observe. But he observes it not without interleaving with his own reaction to that which he observes. He observes it in its own abode and its own truth. He does not add any interpretation to what he is looking at.
And yet that's still within a Keli?
Okay, so this is the Keli, but the Keli itself is blank, like we said. The Keli itself is open to accept what you put into it rather than interpret what it is. There has to be a Keli. But the Keli does not retranslate in its own form, so to speak, that which is shown.
Why does there have to be a Keli? Why could he not, in this moment of quietude, go into the Sechel itself and then later return to Orus Bekalim, Sechel within a Kali format.
Okay. I'd like to try to explain this. The one unique aspect of the human being is that whatever he observes it with a Sechel view. Even when he observes something that he does not know what to make of it. So he knows that he doesn't know what to make of it. Sechel is a primary presence in the human being. It's not of a secondary level. Like, what did I just see? Yeah, that's later. But even at the time when he initially observes, he observes it, and Sechel is a primary presence in the human being. I'd like to elaborate on this, so we should understand this. When you teach an animal to act like a human being, he actually acts like a human being. What is the primary difference between the animal's act? I'm not talking about the animal in general. The animal's act and the human act.
You want to answer? Or you just...
No, it's okay if you
rhetorical
answer.
Question.
It's a rhetorical question because the answer has to come out. But go ahead, if you want to answer, it's fine.
An animal doesn't know what it means, what he's doing means. He's copying the externals. He's
Fine.
copying what
Wait,
the person's
that's
doing.
enough. Now, we're talking about something that a human being observes for the first time. He also doesn't know what it means.
No, he knows that he's seeing something, and
Right.
he knows that whatever it may be, there's some significance to it. There's a difference between knowing what you see, and you look up and you think you see a star, but it may not be a star, and looking up and seeing something and know that you're seeing something.
Okay. Let's stay on a limited target over here. Again, let's bring it back in focus. The human being sees it for the very first time. He doesn't know what it is. What does he bring to bear upon this vision that distinguishes his vision from that of the animal? The reason I'm pressing you is because when you say he knows, this is of a secondary level. He looks at something and then he says, oh, but there must be some meaning to it. That's not looking. That's looking away and applying some interpretation. Knowing one interpretation or not knowing, but applying to it something.
I said, but he's recognizing that he's seeing.
Okay, what does that mean? The animal also sees lahavdil.
Yeah, but it has no self-consciousness. It's not it doesn't even have a sense of self. It reacts. A human being doesn't look at something in a reactive way.
Okay, let's put that aside. On the Sechel level, what has he brought to bear over here? I know we can go in circles, okay? You have to focus in the central theme over here. He is looking at something for the very first time in his life.
Can I try to answer?
Yes, go ahead. Can you make it a little bit louder?
A human being sees, he sees that the thing is true in itself. By an animal, there's no such a thing. There's nothing else which has its own truth, as to say.
I'll do it again.
He sees that something has its own truth. It has a true reality. It doesn't depend on him. An animal, it's besides himself, he doesn't see anything. That reality itself.
What makes the human being see the true reality? He sees exactly the same thing that the animal sees. Why do we say that the animal only sees the apparent and the human being sees the true reality?
I don't know why.
The human being has a sense of true reality.
I'm sorry, what? Sulaiman?
I don't know why.
You don't know why. Okay. Fair enough. Don't know is the first step towards knowing.
He has a sense of the true reality.
Please understand the following. I don't think I ever presented it this way. I'm thinking about this principle a lot, and last night I came up with a mochin for this principle. I'm going to take you off completely into different realm. What is the difference between an airplane and a car? They're both means of transportation. What's the difference between the manner that the car transports or stands and the airplane is suspended? In principle, the difference is this. The car stands on its own recognizance. It stands on the ground, it's at home. It stands where it belongs. The airplane is being suspended by a force outside of itself. However that force is created. But this is exactly what it is. It's being suspended by the force outside of itself.
Well, that's like the fish and the difference between the creatures in the sea and the creatures on the land.
I don't know how that comes in.
The creature on the land is self-motivated and knows that he has his feet on the ground. The fish is suspended in an element that he's completely a part of.
So he's not being suspended. He's there. He belongs there, just like the on the feet on the ground. He belongs there.
No, no. I mean, you've said it many times.
I said many times, but you're misquoting.
How?
The fish is in its element. It is where it belongs.
Yeah.
That's it. It's not outside of its element. It's not just a quote. Let's try and focus to what we're trying to say over here. It's nothing to do with the fish, what I'm explaining. It has nothing to do with fish. It has to do with this, the human being, because he has an neshama, an intelligent neshama. His neshama is part of the divine. Whatever he sees it as being held up by the divine. To him, everything that exists is a miracle.
Everything is like a plane in flight?
Okay, it's like a plane in flight. A plane in flight is like a motion for it.
Okay.
Because the plane doesn't stand on its own.
He's making it every moment. The Creator's placing everything here.
That's all the time.
Every second, yeah.
Every second.
Moshin, the animal, behemoths, like
the animal, they are in the world.
Fine.
They're being held up by the world.
Okay.
Thus, the human being sees things entirely from a different level, from a different viewpoint. This is what you say about Sechel. Sechel is the one that can relate to this supreme reality. Things don't exist.
Right.
Things are being shown, are being made to exist.
Right. And just to get back to where we started, that would seem to indicate no role or for Kalim, namely, things are here with how they're being presented, not according to their worldly parameters. Kalim seem to do with worldly parameters.
That's right, and that's why we need Kalim. Because we have to, if you want to know it from the worldly perspective, you have to put it into worldly Keli, otherwise you wouldn't know it. That's what we said yesterday.
But real sight and getting back to the Sechel per se seems to be about going outside of Kalim, outside of a worldly context, to the thing itself.
And to bring it down.
Yeah, then there's the return down.
That's
okay.
Right. This is where Kalim comes in.
Okay, so again, this moment of quiet.
This moment of quiet
seems to be a return to the Sechel itself, without Kalim, and then coming down.
No, wait a second.
Okay.
Wait a second. That's right. Without Kalim, without the functioning Kalim. It's partial to Kalim, but the Kalim have to be there, otherwise you wouldn't know what to bring back with you.
Why?
If you did not see anything.
But wasn't the point you can see without Kalim? You see not on account of their worldly manifestation, but on account of them themselves.
No, but you have to have open eyes. That's right. You have to have open eyes, which is a Keli. But you're not trusting your eyes to tell you what it is. You're telling the eyes what they see. That's where the intelligence comes in. That's like we say the airplane. The airplane is a whole structure, and it really creates the environment, creates the air pressure that suspends and so forth, but it doesn't suspend itself. There's an outer external environment that allows it to happen. That where it functions, where it takes its wherewithal from. This is the human being. He does not see the world as a reality in itself. And those human beings who have insisted to go down and see the world from its own reality have ruined the human focus. They came to the conclusion that the human being is a monkey. So this intelligence, in order that this intelligence should be known to the human being, he must have the kelim, but the keli itself has to rise up to the truth that the human being observes, to a truth that is higher than keli. This is the ishtoimus. Ishtoimus, in other words, there's no reality. Ishtoimus, he's blank. He's not blank in reality. He's blank on a functional level only. But really, he knows, he wants to see. This ishtoimus is kishor choda, is for one moment. Okay, we can stay on this for how long ever we want to. I just wanted to that mission. Okay. This is the pshat halos klei sichli. Not elimination of klei sichli, but halos klei sichli. Bringing up klei sichli and telling them what they see. This is the power of the intellect of the human being. He tells the physical view, eyes, you think you see what you see. No, that's not what you. That's not the reality. The reality is that this doesn't even exist. It's the Creator who is making it exist. In the simplest term, as we always say, you go into a home and you see tables and chairs. It's not tables and chairs, it's a human home. Who tells him what makes that statement? The Sechel. But it's the eyes who tell you what you're looking at. The eyes tell you only the physical part, and the Sechel is the one who tells you what it really is. And the human being looks at it from the Sechel perspective rather than from the physical perspective. And that's the difference between how the human being sees it and how the animal sees it. And this sight that the human being sees it intelligently is not of a secondary nature. First he sees it and then interprets what he sees. No. To begin with, that is the only thing that exists in his mind. There is no reality to the world. May it be as physical as it is. This is what the Rambam says, we quote it all the time. The principle, the first principle of Sechel is to know that there is a first being who makes everything be. Who focuses in on that? Very few. But yet every human being sees things like a human being. Because this is how his intellect sees it. But the Rambam is telling us that it's incumbent upon us to examine our own intellect and to see what it tells us. Leda means It's a Leda means to know, not to haskell, to understand. Understanding is automatic. But Leda to bring it down to factual, conclusive knowledge. Where do you get that knowledge? From your own Sechel. We had a big benefit from this whole discussion. Okay, let's continue a little bit on the third line, middle of the third line. Adarabba b'chinas aliyah dafka. He is not his pashtus. Other, on the contrary, b'chinas aliyah dafka, he is in a state of aliyah, of rising upwards and forgetting about his own mitzias. V'alidei zeh ba'al haskola. And thereby, he comes to this haskola, to this new concept. Because he's looking at this truth bottom up, but he's rising to see it the way it is in its own abode, not to translate how he sees it. This is why he gets his new haskola. The teva mochin the gadlus, and the nature of mochin the gadlus. Mochin the gadlus means mochin that are independent of any interference, of any world interference, of any experience. Mochin, the way mochin function independently. Not mochin that interpret things, but mochin on their own. Liya is b'pchinas havdalah. The nature there is liya is b'pchinas havdalah, to be in a havdalah state. Stand alone. Ve'ein ze'in hagboho. But we must add in this caveat. This is not in hagboh. This is not the union of hagboh, of aloofness, of being higher than something else. That's not the point in there. The gam mishu ono be'etzem, because also one who is truly in essence and ono, humble, mikol moklim, yet still, mitzateva ha-moichin hu behavdol. Due to the nature of moichin, he is in a separation mode. Think to himself, not because of hagbor, not because of gaiba or anything like that. She'ena misar and mazuls, where he does not mix with someone else, because this is the teva of moichin. And again, as we pointed out in the beginning of this whole discussion, this teva of moichin is a statement that moichin does not give credence to the world. It gives credence only to the creator of the world, because the world is not real to the moichin. This is why enemy side of Anzolas. He doesn't recognize anything in the world but that which he sees from a moichin perspective. So let's finish this. This all is true in the moichin realm. Shehein le'atzmei davko, where they are le'atzmei davko, they're specifically and exclusively le'atzmei, unto himself. In moichin, he knows only that which he thinks, which he knows, not interfering with anything else, and he doesn't look for agreement. For do you agree or you don't agree? This is the way I see it. All right. So we see that time is up. But I think we did make a breakthrough today.